Greetings, everyone. Hello, EAU family. Emma Ansa here, and I am here with three wonderful guests this evening, and we're going to talk about a very important topic. So, our topic for this evening is our missing Black youth, and this is a discussion on the ongoing crisis, and it is an ongoing crisis. So before we get started, I'm going to introduce our wonderful guests. I'm going to start with Vanessa St. Louis. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey everybody, I'm also right. My name is Vanessa St. Louis, and I'm just a Black woman living in Canada. I'm the CEO of Black People United for Change, and I believe that change is possible, and I stand for civil action movements.
Thank you, Vanessa. Dwayne Genus.
Good evening, folks. As Emma mentioned, my name is Dwayne Genus. I'm a passionate advocate for the Black community. I run a tutoring company actually called Genus Nation for our children from grade school all the way to high school. So I have a definite passion for our kids, and very pleased to be here this evening.
And last but certainly not least, Mr. Carlos Morgan.
Hello, everyone. Yes, my name is Carlos Morgan. Singer-songwriter, music educator, and an activist as well. Very passionate about all things that impacts and affects the Black community. So I am glad to be here and to be a part of this discussion.
Again, thank you so much, everybody, for joining. And as I said, we have a crisis going on in Ontario and frankly across Canada. And it all started, I want to say it all started with a report that I did when I identified a lot of missing Black youth. And at the time when I did the report, it was primarily young boys. So they were like teenagers between the age of 14, 17, and there were a couple of young adults. But within that stretch of time, for me personally, when it raised alarms was between October and December of 2024. So I used the platform that I work on, which is African Diaspora News Channel. Shout out to Philip Scott and the team. And I reported on it. So before we get into our discussion, I'm going to remind everybody of the report. So I'm going to pull that up and we're going to take a look at it. And then we'll talk about it further. So let me just grab it.
There has been a very disturbing amount of young Black males that have gone missing in and around Ontario between October and December of this year. We have Kimani Langley.
Very disturbing amount of young Black males that have gone missing in and around Ontario between October and December of this year. We have Kimani Langley. He's 16 years old, last seen on October 21st in Brampton, Ontario. We have Al Pacino McNaught. He's 25 years old, last seen in Niagara-on-the-Lake, Ontario on October 19th.
We have Aiden. He's 15 years old. He was last seen on November 7th.
All right, we're going to start again.
In Ajax, Ontario. We have Trey
The joys of
15 years old.
The joys of live streams.
17th,
Please stand by, viewers.
And then we have Malachi, 15 years old, last seen on December 1st in Toronto, Ontario. So that's 6 young Black males that have gone missing. And if you've noticed, the ages for the vast majority of them are between 15 and 16 years old. This is a problem. What are the police doing? Where are these young boys? Why are they all missing? And so many in such a short period of time. What's going on here? And what can we do as a community to help?
Okay, I'm going to start again so we can all actually see it.
A very disturbing amount of young Black males that have gone missing in and around Ontario between October and December of this year. We have Kimani Langley. He's 16 years old, last seen on October 21st in Brampton, Ontario. We have Al Pacino McNaught. He's 25 years old, last seen in Niagara-on-the-Lake, Ontario on October 19th. We have Michael. They did not reveal his last name, but he's 15 years old, and it was published on November 12th that he was last seen in Whitby, Ontario. We have Aiden. He's 15 years old. He was last seen on November 7th in Ajax, Ontario. We have Trey Sean. He's 15 years old. He was last seen on November 17th in Toronto, Ontario. And then we have Malachi, 15 years old, last seen on December 1st in Toronto, Ontario. So that's 6 young Black males that have gone missing. And if you've noticed, the ages for the vast majority of them are between 15 and 16 years old. This is a problem. What are the police doing? Where are these young boys? Why are they all missing? And so many in such a short period of time. What's going on here?
So we have all of these people missing. And I will say that all of the ones that I reported at that time have since been found, except for one. Al Pacino McNaught tragically was unalived. So we've gone to the town halls, with the exception of Vanessa, Dwayne, and Carlos. We've gone to the town halls. And before I say how I feel, let me just start with you, Carlos. How did you feel when you went to the town halls and heard what, the police were saying about what's going on, etc.?
I didn't feel the police was really all that invested. They were given statistics of why the boys are running away, or not, well, statistics, but as they were given their reasons, what I feel are more narratives than legitimate reasons, or they could have been legitimate reasons, but they weren't really addressing some of the really underlying issues, in my opinion, as to what is going on with, young Black boys and young Black girls, women that are going missing. They didn't really address a lot of the issues. What I also found in the very first town hall, there wasn't a Black police officer or anybody from anybody from the Black community that was in law enforcement or the judicial system that was addressing the issue. And I will say this, that there was somebody that was there. I won't mention his name, but there was someone that was there that was speaking about the reasons, and he was also espousing this narrative or these narratives of why young Black youth are going missing, and I found that to also be disturbing, and bothering to me. So yeah, it was great that we had town hall meetings, but I didn't feel that there were any answers as to what's going on and to how we can go about finding these young men and what are the resources that could be put into finding these young men, or these young boys and girls, or young women, excuse me. So yeah, that's how I felt. That's my feeling about it.
Thank you, Carlos. But what about you, Vanessa? How did you feel? I know you went to the virtual town hall, but you hadn't attended any of the town halls that were in person.
No, I went to the initial one that took place via Zoom at the start of the year. And I like Carlos mentioned, I was very, very dissatisfied at the narratives that were created, I first did not appreciate the generalization of the family background of these missing youths. I didn't what they were trying to say is that basically the missing youths are coming from broken homes, homes where, you know, there was homophobia present, or that they were engaging in you know, the distribution of narcotics up north. And to me, to, you know, minimize the severity of black youths missing at such a rapid rate, and to minimize the urgency of getting it out there in the public and having more law enforcement involved in really recognizing that there is a pattern and it's still ongoing today. And none of the town meetings have ever resulted in the missing teens being publicized. That's never happened for us. We had a small little coverage on city TV. However, it was just to mention mental illness and a lack of understanding on the part of the parents to these children, which would be a catalyst to their disappearance. So definitely, um, after that initial town hall meeting, I wasn't very interested in attending another. And I see that the outcomes are still the same. We don't see these kids on the news. We don't know their names. We don't hear from the families. You know, it's a lot of generalization, you know.
Thank you, Vanessa. And Dwayne, tell us how you feel.
Thank you so much, Emma, and thank you to everyone here. You know, when I think of these town halls, the word that comes to mind is staged. I feel as if these, you know, these gatherings were pre-orchestrated. They were already organized and well planned out to kind of create a narrative that didn't include the elephant in the room, which is racism. So we completely create a setup where it's all black people who are on the stage. So no one can say that, you know, well, mostly black people can say that there was no black representation. But those black people, you know, for me, there wasn't enough outrage. There wasn't enough passion or concern about young people missing. It was more about explaining why they were missing. And Emma, you know, I really have to give it to you for showing the concern, for raising this issue, because I feel, you know, that this occurrence really highlights, you know, what happens when our people get up to defend an issue. There was just too much smiling and too much, you know, trying to explain to the audience and to parents why there wasn't a problem. And everybody in who came to the town hall came because there was a problem. So there was a huge disconnect. And I think it was almost a way of diverting the energy of the audience to kind of help them, pacify them, to say, don't worry, actually, they're all fine. They're all at home. And really the issue is a family issue, but completely sidestepping the major issue of racism, which we as a community know exists, right? So I was concerned about our leadership, the people who were representing us on stage there, and why they, I mean, I have my own idea why, you know, they were not able to represent us properly. But at the end of the day, you are black, and these kids are black. So, you know, there should be some allegiance. So, you know, although I definitely want to hold the system accountable, I want to hold our leaders accountable too, right? If you are not going to be there to represent us, you should not be on the stage. That's my feeling. So I'll kind of leave it there.
Thank you, Dwayne. For me personally, I felt like it was very performative. And the reason why I say that is because, from my perspective, when I heard a town hall was happening, I was expecting our community for sure, but I was expecting to hear from the people impacted by this, right? The parents, family members, families of family, friends of friends, whatever. I wasn't expecting the police and the mayor and all these other people just to have a platform to bring their statistics. And then I felt like with every single town hall, it was the same thing. They were just traveling and interchanging between who was going to, be up and, a whole panel. And after the first in-person one, I didn't go back because I was like, this is counterproductive. This is not progressive in any way. I didn't feel like it was doing anything for us. And then let's talk about the statistics that they were saying, which was, two categories that, our youth are running away from a bad situation, broken home, i.e., or running to or being lured to a bad situation, i.e., trafficking, selling drugs, etc. How did you guys feel about those two? I know for me personally, and we have evidence, at least of one person for sure on record that didn't fall under those categories, and that's Al Pacino McNaught. But tell me how you felt about that. I'll start with you, Vanessa.
Well, it's really upsetting because in your attempt to minimize the seriousness of all these Black youths, both girls and boys, missing at such a rapid rate, and all you're doing is trying to convince the Black community there's no reason to be worried. That it's very concerning, and it's just like Dwayne said, the elephant in the room was racism. Now, the Black individuals that were sitting up there on the panel, they have to be in alignment with what their bosses are saying or their funders. And the reason why they had to be compliant with that narrative is because they fear reprisal, reprisals such as loss of funding, loss of status, So it's just like what you're saying, it's programmed and rehearsed. First of all, the first faux pas was when they felt the need to describe the difference between missing and abduction as if we're an illiterate set of people. Like, I'm sure we all know what abducted is and what missing is. Like, the whole thing was just a prettily packaged act of discrimination. And I did not like the narratives that were painted because not every Black youth is coming from a broken home. Not every Black youth is involved in drugs. Not every Black youth is coming from a homophobic home. And to say that and just dismiss these missing youths, to say that is like just saying, don't worry, it's no big deal. To me, in my opinion, that's how I looked at it. And that was the main reason I never bothered going in the cold to any facilitated town halls.
Yeah, I agree. That that narrative for me was troubling. Dwayne, tell me how you felt.
Yes, 100%. I just want to concur with what Vanessa was saying. And, again, I don't know who were we there to represent when people showed up that meeting. Was it for the police? Were we protecting the police, or were we protecting the children? Right. This is really what the crux of the matter is, because it seemed as if the whole performance was there to protect law enforcement, to say that they had done their job. But that's not what the people showed up for. The people had a concern. And so for me, it shows a lack of respect for the pain that the community is feeling, right? Now, am I surprised about what I was seeing? No, I'm not surprised at all, because I already understand, I already know the perception of how they feel about us, what they think about us. It's a narrative that goes back centuries, right? Black life is not, we are not human beings. Really, it follows this storyline. So we are not civilized people. So if these things are happening, really, it's because we don't know how to take care of families. We don't know how to raise children. We're not people who can really, take care of ourselves. We are like children, which is a narrative that goes back centuries, right? Which shows that really there has not been really any change in all that time in the way, in the thought process around our people. Now, I would say that, I did show up to these town hall meetings. I thought it was important to go there because I don't want them to get away with anybody just saying whatever and nobody holding them accountable. Like, I want to hold their foot and say, hold on, if there's one person here, it's going to be me to tell you what I think, right? And I think it for me is very troubling, because I'm concerned about our leaders who are there to represent us in these situations. They started the conversation from a place where that didn't even have a platform for the parents to speak. There was no time or space in there for a parent to kind of voice their concern. From beginning to end, it was an explanation of why it wasn't a problem. So if not for the things that we are doing here, then we would have no voice, right? And Emma, Vanessa, I want to again thank you for, standing up. Our women have been so strong and making sure that we have a voice in this situation.
Thanks, Dwayne. Carlos?
Okay, so for me, I got a lot of thoughts and feelings swirling around at the same time, and I'm just trying to formulate my thoughts. So I'll start with, I'll echo something, and I hope I remember something that Vanessa said. So between when they were explaining the difference between abduction and missing, I personally didn't see the difference. When I hear that someone's missing, I automatically go to they're being taken. So, and again, seeing all these reports, weekly, sometimes daily reports, and still weekly reports or daily reports of young Black youth that are going missing. So when it was explaining the difference between abduction and missing, I was like, okay, thanks for that. And then they started to explain, well, these kids are going missing because, as Vanessa said, they're getting into, drugs or selling of drugs, or they're being lured away to sell drugs, being involved in or gang activity, or whatever nefarious activity they're involved in, or they're getting involved in. They're being lured away by other youth. Just all these narratives were being spun. And again, to echo something that Vanessa said about not all these kids are coming from broken homes, and even if they are coming from broken homes, the issue that they didn't address is what's going on in these broken homes, or what are the root causes for these broken homes, right? If they're having issues at school and they're getting involved in quote unquote criminal activity even while going to school, then what are the root causes of these issues? What are the issues or causes for why our young Black youth are going down these paths, if you will? So there were a lot of things that were not addressed And again, just being there and hearing the police officers, and I, for one, was from jump immediately do not trust the police at all, because when it comes to us as a community, to again echo with something Dwayne said, when it comes to us as a community, they're innate. I believe their natural or innate inclination is to demonize and vilify the Black community. That is their agenda, if you will. That's my personal opinion. So I did not trust the police at all. And then again, we have members of our community who, will go along with these narratives, who will coalesce with these narratives, and so those of us who really, I feel, see past all the smoke and mirrors, and again with what you have done and are continuing to do, Emma and Vanessa, we need more of these things, more of these kind of gatherings, if you will, to talk about and address and figure out what we can do to really understand what's going on with our youth and why so many of them are going, quote unquote, missing for whatever the reason is. Yeah, so that's it for me.
And for me, the thing that landed on me a lot was when they said that they're being lured to a bad situation, right? To either selling drugs or whatever the case may be. And we had, and Dwayne, I believe you were at that town hall with myself and Carlos as well. One of the fathers stood up and was speaking. And he mentioned that his son was just going to basketball practice. So it's just another day, going to basketball practice, ends up missing for 10 months, and then ends up found in a trap house in Aurelia. And two things were not accurate, or I guess I would say this child didn't fall in those two categories at all, because number one.
Sorry, so I'm sorry to interrupt you. So right there. So how does a child, sorry to interrupt you, Emma, very quickly. How does a child go and play basketball and then 10 months, it just ends up gone after 10 months? Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to put that question out there.
Well, and that's my point, is that the reason why I'm saying he doesn't fall under those two categories is because he didn't come from a broken home. He came from a home with a mother and father. They had lived a good life. They weren't, struggling in any way financially or anything. That's the first thing. And then secondly, he was going to basketball practice. So the fact that he ended up in Aurelia at a trap house is problematic to me. And so my question is, like Carlos said, how does, I think he was 14 or 15, end up in a trap house when he's on his way to basketball practice, something that he does on a regular basis? And B, when I say what are the police doing, I'm not only talking about finding them, I'm talking about what are you doing to address the fact that more, because right now it's 70%, of missing youth are Black. So what are you doing to address the fact that it's 70%? And what are you doing to address the fact that these people are luring our youth? What are you doing to cut off the head of the snake? Because if that didn't exist, they wouldn't be lured. Now, I've been told that it's a very sophisticated operation. So clearly, maybe it's not as simple as just finding the one person and then it's all over. I get that. I'm just questioning, what are they doing? Because when you look at all of the school shootings that happen, the schools are educating the kids now. So why are we not being armed with tools by law enforcement for our kids to talk to our youth and so on? So what do you have to say about that, Dwayne? I'll start with you.
Well, I'm smiling because, we are dealing with tricksters, because, it's all in the definition when we talk about human rights, and we are dealing with the human rights of individuals. Well, you have to be human first right? So if you don't look at Black people as human, those rights don't apply to you. So this is the disconnect here, right? We are still not considered as human beings. So our kids are not considered as human beings. And I think, I want to kind of pick up on something that was mentioned. The whole idea that, I keep hearing over and over again, well, these kids some of them didn't come from broken homes. You know what? We are all broken from our experience being in this environment. We have all been broken along the way. And, it seems as if everybody wants to just avoid the conversation of the destruction of the Black family, the destruction of Black people. Let's start it after slavery. Let's start it where everybody is on equal footing. But none of us are on equal footing, right? We are all still struggling, and so what are we really talking about here? We're talking about, why are Black people the first ones to always have to be struggling in this society? Because there's never been rehabilitation, or there's never been a fixing of the problem, or an acknowledgement that there is a problem, right? So I think we sometimes we are trying to understand a problem from a logical perspective, but it's not logical, because we know we are human and they're saying we are not human. Where are we going to argue there, right? We have to. I think the approach that we have to take at this point is we have to stand up and make our voice heard. And what didn't appreciate about those town halls is that it just avoided the whole issue of why we were there. It avoided the whole issue. So I don't know. I think maybe I was just a little roundabout there, but I'm trying to kind of lay it right down. My wife lost her brother 19 years ago, and he was a third-year electrical engineering student. He never came back home. His name was Aju Iraga, and they said that he ran away in the bush and that he probably found his way to the highway. He did up north, but they said that because why? That his life didn't mean anything. So it's difficult to kind of talk to entities when we are not getting reasonable answers back. We're trying to get a reasonable answer back, and we can't seem, after all these years, to have an intelligent conversation.
Yeah,
it's frustrating, isn't it? Frustrating.
It is frustrating. It's truly is frustrating, because I'm going to talk about another parent that was there, and she mentioned that she had called the police because her son or daughter, I believe it was, had gone missing. And when the police came, they came in hot, and she was who they targeted. So she was saying, I don't trust you. And the thing that bothered me is the parents were given a couple of minutes at the end of the town hall to address their concerns or ask their questions. And so I feel like the whole thing is backwards. We should not be allowing them to come with their stats and take up all of the time, and then you just have the parents lined up and please keep it brief. And then at the end of the day, none of their questions were being answered. None of their comments were being addressed. Mm-hmm. So that was an issue that I had. But sorry, I kind of just segued or sort of veered off a bit. But, Vanessa, back to my original question. I am giving you the floor to talk to it.
Well, I'm glad you did veer off a little bit there, Emma, because if we're going to speak comparatively, when I think of missing kids that we all know their names, like Holly Jones, her name, and Sharmini Nandaval, like these are kids that have gone missing in Toronto where there was major and massive media coverage on their disappearance. And all you heard from the media and the police and everyone was concern, concern, concern. And that same concern has never been given to our missing Black youth. Rather than show concern or share their disappearances with the media, um, or let the parents come and share what they're going through, the agony of not knowing where their children are, all we got was town halls, and with the police bringing in numbers and statistics. But if you were to counteract their narratives and their numbers and statistics, I live very close to Young and Gerard. I mentioned those streets because one of the biggest youth shelters in Toronto is called the Covenant House. Now, when I walk by the Covenant House, you might see one or two Black youths, but most of the youth standing outside or whatever they're doing, they're predominantly white. So it just goes to show how numbers can either work for you or against you. What I'm trying to say in a nutshell is that what Dwayne is saying is right because of their lack of care for our lives, or they probably think the way their ancestors do, that we are not complete human beings. We won't see um, our missing Black youth's pictures on the TV, or like Holly Jones or Charmini Nandaval. Charmini Nandaval, she went missing a couple of years ago. She's of Asian descent. Holly Jones was a Caucasian, but that same concern, that same media coverage was not given to our missing Black youth, you know. And I myself do not trust the police either, because it wasn't until after these town hall meetings all of a sudden they were found, they're here. How were they found? What was the Why were they missing in the first place? Where did they go? Why is it that when we visit the RCMP's website or the website for the Society of Missing Children in Canada, we don't even know these kids' last names? Why, how come we don't know this? How come I can tell you about Charmini Nandaval and Holly Jones? Why isn't their last name shared? There's so many whys, whys, and whys. And when I can't find like a reason that's valid, I'm going to start grasping straw. And the longest straw to me is the perpetuation of racism and the perpetuation of the disregard that Canadian society has for our Black lives, including our children.
Yes. You know, I actually, if you don't mind, I just want to even pick up on that point as well. Does everybody remember the name Jane Kriba? Jane Kriba. Remember Jane Kriba? You know, that name resonates because that was the only name associated with that, and she was shot by accident. It was downtown Toronto, I think by the Eaton Center. And Black youth were the ones, I think there was maybe a gunfight. She got shot by, I think, a stray bullet. But we were the monsters. And she got shot. And I think the hammer really came down. There was even a Jane Kriba law that came out. But funny, the only person that was humanized in that event was Jane Kriba. Right? You don't know the names of the young people or what they went through or why they ended up where they did in their lives to be in a situation, because young people shouldn't be in a situation where they feel their lives don't matter, right? Nobody thinks to dig into those things. And so I don't, honestly, where I feel at this point that we need to focus our energy is we can't focus our energy on hoping that we'll change, because I think it's only by unifying within ourselves that we can force them to change. We can't ask them, because we've been asking and there's no response. I think the only way we do it is doing things like this, where we speak the truth forcefully. And again, Emma, I really want to thank you for this platform, because a platform is so powerful. This platform that they created during these town halls was a platform for them. It wasn't a platform for us. So that's why we're upset, because the focus was they used our issue and turned it around on us. It wasn't for us, it was for them. So unless we create our own platforms to have our own narrative, our message will never get across, because they're even using our people to communicate their narrative. Right? So this is a tricky situation that we are in. And I want to thank you for what you're doing here.
Oh, you know what? It was something that I don't even feel like I need thanks for. It was something that I identified, and I felt the need to use the platforms that I have. And speaking of platforms, the only reason it ever even made it, to your point, Vanessa, to mainstream is because of the platform that I reported it on, which then prompted the town hall, which then, after the town hall, it made it to mainstream. Okay, so that's to tell you. Meanwhile, I will see, one that's not Black go missing, and it will be one person, and they'll be on CBC and all of the other news outlets. Okay, and then when they're found, back on those news outlets. So again, we know, or we're seeing 70%. And nobody thought that this should be a mainstream media. I will say this, though. I know at one of the town halls, one of the detectives mentioned that, they're doing it for the privacy of the parents, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. I personally, I question that. But Carlos, tell me what you think.
Well, to answer your question, the answer that I come up with, the answer that I came up with, is that we as a community have to take the responsibility for ourselves and educate our children ourselves, because as we are all in agreement, I think, or I'll assume that there are some who are listening in will share the same sentiment that we cannot depend on the police or law enforcement or the judicial system to support the community and support us. So we have to do what we have to do for ourselves. It's like I heard Minister Farrakhan say, when are we going to stop depending on white people, and when we have the power to do what we have to do for ourselves. So, and I'm paraphrasing what he said, but again, we have to take the responsibility to educate our children, to educate ourselves as parents, and to sit down with our children. And I'm sure many of us, many parents do that. We always hear where Black parents have to tell their children, okay, when you're dealing with law enforcement or with the police, if they pull you over, what to do and what not to do so you can make it home. Well, we have to say and have these kind of same conversations with our children. And, I think we all come from a generation where our parents would, they would walk in our rooms and they would, be all up in our business. And if we talk back to them, we know what's coming next. We're going to get knocked clear across the room, or have our face or have our mouth at the back of our heads. Right? That's the generation we come from. And not to say that I'm condoning or I'm advocating for, to knock our children upside the head. But, at the same time, I come from that old school, and I sometimes believe these young kids may need that hardcore discipline. And a part of that hardcore discipline is telling them very directly, listen, You walk out of this house and you go to school or wherever you're going, I'm not going to be there. So this is what you have to do to protect yourself. If people are approaching you to get involved in drugs or get in a gang or whatever it is that you're gonna be lured away from home, this is what you have to do. We have to encourage our children to come to talk to us if they're having problems at school, with other children, with the faculty, which I've seen many young people do. They go to their parents and they say, we're having problems at school, and the parents go to the school and they address the faculty or the administration of their child or children or the Black youth that are being abused. So that is already happening. But I think we need to do a lot more, because again, the way I personally see it is when we have, there's so many things that are against us as a people, right? We're all of the same belief that our lives don't matter, but our lives matter to us, and we have to show our children that their lives matter to us. And so if instead of us saying, okay, well, the police this, and let's just focus on what we have to do as a people and what we have to do to stop this issue of our children going missing, whether they're being lured, as I said before, or they're being taken, kidnapped, whatever the issue or the situation is. We need to address these issues ourselves, because it's very disheartening, it's very upsetting, it's very infuriating, and we need to figure this out on our own. So that's it. You're muted.
Sorry. Yes, I was just saying that, I don't expect the police to raise our children, right? Like, we bear that responsibility. And to your point, Carlos, back in our day, not only mom and dad, but neighbor and auntie across the street and uncle on the other side, everybody was looking out for us. And if we were up to no good, they didn't have a problem putting their hands on us either, right? And so it does take a village, I always say. And my parents always were like, don't go with anybody. And they've said that since we were little. If you don't go talk to strangers, don't get in any cars with strangers, don't follow anybody who tells you to come, the same ripe old things. These days, though, there are a lot of youth that are easily influenced by, somebody, and sometimes they come in as a very nice looking married couple. And they'll approach them and be like, hello, we want to take you shopping. We want to buy you shoes. And they do all of this stuff. And then they end up luring that young person. It does happen. And then oftentimes they'll pull up and they'll find another teen. And then they'll have 2 or 3 teenagers in the back that are Black. And then it will make that person, the other teenager that they're trying to lure, feel safe because, oh, I see some other teens in there, so I'm going to jump in too. So they do that. But again, it starts with us at home as well. The community, the parents, we definitely need to have those conversations with our kids, because it's hard out here in these streets, okay? And our youth it's not like our day, oftentimes. It just isn't. I'm going to go to the chat, though, because we have some people that are saying some really interesting things. Tyrone Green said, if law enforcement looked into these cases the way they look into us for drug crimes and et cetera, they would come to a conclusion and stop this from happening, right? That is so true, Tyrone. Thank you for that. AJ says, we never know who is benefiting from these kids going missing. We can't fully rely on the cops. We need to also have something we can monitor and be involved with. Exactly true. Um, Charm Belcher says, I do understand your message, but it's a global, worldwide that Black youth are targeted and being taken and unalived and only returning with certain body parts. It's a sad thing that's going on. And that's true. So again, they don't always fall under those two categories. We know that for a fact, So what are your thoughts on some of these comments? I'll start with you, Dwayne.
Well, I wanted to say that I look at this thing from two ends. I appreciate what Carlos was saying, that there are things that we have to do right now, right? And part of that is sitting down and having frank conversations with our kids to let them understand the environment that they're in, and understand the reality of being a Black person. That it is not safe, and you cannot operate like someone else does. So we have to do that. That is a survival mechanism. It's just the reality, right? So that's the first thing. And I think we also going to have to be proactive. This is what I think the way forward is. We're going to have to do things that deal with the situation right now, but we have to be proactive as adults. We have to create an environment that changes the situation going forward. And I'm going to give a quote I've been reading. I'm a guy who likes to read books. John Henrik Clarke is he's a master teacher. He's one of my heroes, the late John Henrik Clarke. And in one of his books, he mentions one of the great Bayesian authors. And he wrote an essay called The Basis of African Culture. And the quote, I've been just quoting this quote everywhere. He goes, what we do for ourselves, it depends on what we know about ourselves and what we accept about ourselves. And I just think that is so instructive, because we don't do certain things for ourselves because we haven't taken the time to learn about ourselves and learn about the people who are doing this to us. For how many centuries they've been studying us. All those missionaries that went to Africa, they were studying us. So they've studied us, and even when we go to these town halls, every time they are always studying us. We need to study them. We need to understand who we are dealing with and understand, are they capable of changing the way we would want them to change? And I think these town halls was a way of actually help convincing us what we should accept about ourselves, that we are bad parents, that we are this or we are that, we are irresponsible. No, I don't accept that we are irresponsible. I think they were irresponsible. So I think we need to push back. And once we've accepted certain things about ourselves, it handicaps what we can do for ourselves, right? So I really think it's important for us as a mature Black community to dig deep into our history, dig deep into our ancestors, to dig deep into the messages that inform us about who we are. Because if we don't inform ourselves, people will tell us who we are. And once we believe that, we're done. So that's my statement.
That is facts. So we've kind of unpacked and we've shared how we feel about the town halls, about what the police are saying, their statistics. And so now we've also said, the responsibility is on our community. I said it in my report, we are all we have. Mm-hmm. So now we're going to talk about what are we doing? Good segue. So with that, Vanessa St. Approached me and asked if I would be part of a peaceful demonstration that she had spearheaded. And, I couldn't say yes fast enough because, and I'll let Vanessa talk more about it, but the reason why I was so interested in being a part of it is because we are now doing exactly what everybody else we're doing. What we're not doing what everybody else was doing, which was providing this platform for the police and the mayor and all of these other people to come and talk about statistics. We're allowing the community to speak. We're allowing people who are impacted by this to speak. If they want to come, and they are more than welcome to come, but they're going to come and listen. Okay, it's not a platform for them to speak. So with that, I'm going to allow Vanessa to tell us what inspired you and tell us more about the demonstration.
Thank you, Emma. And thank you, Dwayne and Carlos and Charm Belcher. I love what you said in the comments there. The more I sat here and I listened to like Dwayne and Carlos, to me, it just comes back to one main point, you know. For many years, there were a lot of Indigenous women gone missing, and the police never did anything about it, just as much as they're twiddling their thumbs regarding our missing Black youth. Now, not only have the Black community suffered atrocities since the 1700s, we have to remember that an entire generation of the Indigenous was wiped out. But somehow, do you want to know why there are laws visible in the book of legislation specific to the Indigenous and First Nations people? Because they worked together. They didn't stop making noise. They didn't say, well, the town meetings are over, it's just the way it is. They kept going and going and going. And although their whole generation was wiped away, together they have found themselves. And together they have a reconciliation day. There are laws that if you say certain things to the Indigenous, you can be punishable by the law. We don't have that. And I listened to that town hall meeting, and I'm like, there's a lot of invisible injustices prevalent here in Canada, which we always blame on the United States for the fact that we did have segregated schools in Canada, discrimination. And the sad thing about it, if you really research, the biggest, most successful civil rights activist ever to live in Canada was Viola Desmond, a female. And she went to court. She did everything. She stood by herself. She lost her husband. She fought alone, but she didn't give up. And today we see her picture on the $10 bill, you know? And this is the spirit we need to have among the Black community. They took away summer youth job programs through Tropicana. So our Black youths are, what do they do in the summer? There's no more little job placement programs to occupy them or what have you. They pulled the funding from the little Black community camps in the summer. So parents, they can't afford $500 a week. So we need to bring back that civil rights movement spirit in Canada and do what the Panthers did and create our own. But we have to remember what Martin Luther King said. We can't change these people's minds. Sorry. Because the same way it's embedded in our minds that we're not good enough, we can't do it, where we need to try to fit into their life, their society. They have those messages in their minds just as much as we do. But Martin Luther King said, you cannot change the heart of a man, but laws can be implemented to restrain the heartless. So the demonstration, it was inspired because of you, Emma. And the last thing you said in that broadcast of the missing Black youth, you said we're all we have, that the Black community, we are all each other has. The palm colored ethnic group is not going to say, well, we should change the way it is. Only we can do it. The first step is to restrain the heartless and change the law, implement anti Black racism laws so police don't think that they can murder our children and get away with it, or they could sit in a lunch cafeteria and say, oh my God, slavery was so many years ago. Get over it. Get over what? We're going through generational trauma. But if somebody says that to me as a Black woman at work, they're not going to be worried about saying it because there is no penalty and there is no consequence. So we have to work together and say, we're not begging to fit into your society, but rather you are going to accept the fact that we're fully human as if you are. And we deserve the right to be treated equally. Not because it's a favor we're asking from the government, but we're all born human. So it was you, Emma, that inspired me. I'm like sitting down listening to these people talk and bring up numbers and make excuses and justify all the horrific things that people go through in Canada as a Black person. It's not going to work anymore. We need to see laws in the book of legislation that say anti Black racism laws. You see, they could say there's anti-hate laws, but it's such a big category. Like it's a broad picture, you know. There's nothing to acknowledge our suffering. There's nothing to acknowledge how many youths we've lost through justifiable homicide by the police, our missing Black kids, cutting our programs that were a benefit to us. But we as a community, we have to also accept and take responsibility and say, look, we're going to come together and put back these programs. We're going to do like the Panthers and have breakfast programs. But we can't achieve it with one, it's not a one-man show. We need each other because nobody else is going to come in and make that difference unless we stand and do it together. So on April the 11th, as you know, Emma, we are taking that first step. We are handing in a petition to the Legislative Assembly to implement anti Black racism laws. We want to see our names the same way we see our names in the news. If someone Black breaks the law, well, we want to see anti Black racism laws in that book of legislation. And I think we deserve it because we've been through too much. And on the same note, we have to do better amongst each other and not work against each other. We can't expect them to change their narratives. Changing their narratives, well, then they're not so powerful. But if we stick together and bring back that Black Wall Street mentality, we can overcome it, but not alone. So that's why we ask that you come down on April the 11th and stand with us as we petition the government to make change, because that's the only way things will change. And before I hit back that mute button, I really want you to remember what Martin Luther King Jr. said. He said, although the laws cannot change the heart of a man, the laws can restrain the heartless. Think about it. Thank you, Emma.
Can I
And
jump?
that's right, Carlos. Actually, you beat me to it.
Yeah, I just wanted to say something. I agree with everything Vanessa said, and thank you for your impassioned sharing your passion and your impassioned feelings on this issue. And for both of you, Emma and Vanessa, to put this gathering on April 11th together. It's very important. So again, to agree with everything you said, but one thing I want to address is that, for years I've been asking, when are they going to offer, and Canada is going to offer an official apology and offer some kind of reparations for slavery in this country? I've been asking for years. I've had friends who's worked in the Ontario Parliament, who was part of the NDP party. I've asked people who worked for the Liberals and the Conservatives, when is there going to be an official apology to Canada, from Canada, or for the Canadian government for slavery in this country? And they're not going to give us one. So when we're going to be going and asking the Ontario legislation, or the federal government, to say we want to see anti-Black racism laws, which I'm in full support of, but I'll pose the question: is that something we think we're going to get from these people? They're not going to give it to us. They're not going to offer us. They're going to say we want anti-Black, and even if we say we want anti-Black racism, and if it's anti-Black racism laws, even more so, they're not going to do that, because if they're going to push any anti-racism laws, it's going to be for all that they call, quote unquote, the politically, the political people of color, right? It's not going to just be for us, but if we're asking for anti-Black racism or protections against racism for the quote unquote Black community, are they going to do that when they're not even offering an official apology and reparations to foundational Black Canadians for slavery in this country that was here for over 200 years? So my thing is, so I'm going back to, instead of us focusing on seeking some sort of quote unquote validation from them, because we know we're not going to get it from them. And as you're saying, we need to come together. We need to work together. We need to do what the Americans have been doing for years that we in Canada have not even started to yet, and that is to unify as a diaspora across this country, from the East Coast to the West, and saying, hey, right, they're not going to give us anti-Black racism laws. They're not going to give us or offer an official apology. They're not going to give us reparations. Their objective is to oppress us continuously, perpetually, to dehumanize us and to oppress us. So, yeah.
Carlos, do you mind if I respond to you on that one?
Can I just say something? I just want to kind of bring everything together. I think it's not a matter of asking; it's about us taking. Because I think freedom cannot be given; you have to take it, right? And the only way we take it is when we become a force to be reckoned with. To become a force to be reckoned with, you must be organized. And I think they've convinced us that we don't have the power to take what we want. That's what they've convinced us all these centuries, is that you are too weak. You are too disorganized. You are not able, you're not capable. But once we turn the narrative and realize who and what we come from, they know that, and it's been said, if you read Garvey's writings and stuff, they literally said that, writers said that if we help these people and allow them to become organized, that we will not we will not be able to catch them. So this is something that's known. So I think we must start to believe in ourselves, because once we believe, it's not a matter of them giving it. It's a matter of them recognizing, well, it's a matter of them not having the choice, because unified, there's nobody who can beat us. Right.
Well, that's the issue. We're not unified. Too many of us are still
enslaved
and colonized.
This movement here is a step in the right direction of organizing ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
This is a step in the right direction, and I want us to continue moving forward. It's not a one and done.
Mm-hmm.
No,
it's a step.
True.
We have to continue moving forward, right?
Dwayne, I just wanted to say to Carlos, you are on point, and they already have anti-hate laws for racialized groups. Now, do you see the thing about this country is that they're very, I'm just going to say it straight. Canada is a very sneaky country. You see, we always say, well, we don't have to worry about it. That's in the US. Jim Crow was in the US. But in all reality, the racism is far more prevalent in Canada than it is in the United States.
That is
You see,
100%.
Absolutely.
That is
the
100%.
government
100%
never
accurate.
thought that those 200 and odd buried native children would be dug back up. And what did they do? They apologized. Do you know it's not a lot? Now, my parents sent me to Black community camp and Black community school, summer school. You know, we never really learned that they had schools, segregated schools in Canada, and that it didn't stop until 1983. We don't know these things. So the more we dig and we dig and we dig and we bring it to them, then the more they're going to be ashamed, the same way they were horrified when they dug up those indigenous children. All of a sudden there's Indigenous Day and what have you, and Reconciliation Day. We will get that day, but we can't just think, well, on Friday, April the 11th, this will pass and it will be so. Dwayne, I'm going to quote you what you said. Our Black community, we react. If something is going on, we react. And to be truthful, the missing Black kids thing kind of died down now that it's not popular to have on your status or your Instagram, or to brag and show off about how many numbers and what have you. But it's something that's continuous. Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, they never gave up, but there is one superstar civil rights activists that we had in Canada, and that was Viola Desmond. After that, all who came in the name of activism, they didn't cut it at all, or the victory would have been achieved a long time ago. We cannot give up and we cannot separate. And I'm so glad that God made me listen to you that day, Emma. I met your Carlos and Dwayne, Christine Jackson. There's so many other like-minded people out there. What we have to do is come together and stand as one. You know, it's just like in slavery. Malcolm Malcolm X says it plainly. Are you the field Negro or the house Negro? Some of us are the house Negroes, but then there's some of us who are the field Negroes who say no, who stand up and fight and don't stop fighting until the victory is won. So I have no doubt that and Carlos, I'm hoping that you will stand up and say what you just said on Friday. We need more than an apology. We need a reconciliation, because there's too much Black blood that has been spilled in Canada since the 1800s up to now. And I hope you will say that out loud on April the 11th.
I will, definitely.
Thank you.
Well said, Vanessa. And I echo everything that all of you have said. And I should mention to our audience that Dwayne Genus, Carlos Morgan, they will be speaking at this demonstration as well. And I agree. Please be very forthcoming about everything that you feel and everything that you would like to see happen for our community. And I agree with Vanessa. Rome wasn't built in a day. We can't expect to go to this demonstration and then everything is going to fall into place the way that we want it to. It's not, but it's definitely a start. And we just have to keep forging on and do like they did back in the day. The days of Malcolm X, the days of Martin Luther King, nothing stopped them except for, well, we know what, right? Otherwise, they weren't going to stop. So we can't stop. We have to. And Christine Jackson, shout out to you. She said, this is the problem in our community. They do things for the hype and clout. And so, to Vanessa's point, we need to get the people that are like-minded, that have the same moving thought process and everything, want the same things and genuinely want it for our community, not looking for likes and, millions of views and all of those things. We're talking about making change. And that's why it says on this flyer, let's be part of the change. Final words. I'll start with you, Carlos.
Well, again, just want to say thank you, Emma, and to Dwayne and Vanessa, for this, this talk and this conversation and discussing how and what we can do to foster and nurture answers on what is going on with our youth and the issue of missing Black youth. And I really appreciate everything each of you said. I'm very grateful to all that, everything that each of you said. And again, for making or having me a part of this discussion, and looking forward to April 11th. And I hope, and I want to ask everybody that's out there or who's listening in to please come down, tell your friends, tell your family, about this event. We really hope that we can have our community, the Black community here in Ontario or Toronto, to come out and, have conversations. And, though it's just going to be a couple hours, but hopefully, once those 2 hours are over, that people will still be willing to engage in more conversations and discussions. And of course, there will be people who have different ideas and beliefs, and that's all good. Some we will be in agreement and some we won't, but they're all going to be valid. But the objective is that we all come up with answers. And as Vanessa said, that we come together and that we unify. That's what we need to do as a people, because we are not unified. And so let's unify for our youth, because our youth need us. They're looking up to us, and they're looking to us to be like, okay, what are y'all going to do to help us? What are y'all going to do to save us? What are y'all going to do? You're our parents, you're our elders, and so we have to really step into that role. So again, God bless y'all, and thank you.
Dwayne?
So final words, I'd like to say April 11th is a day of legacy. And we are honored to be walking in the footsteps of those great ones who came before us. We owe it to them to keep the light on, to keep the torch burning. We have not fulfilled the destiny, and the lives that those ancestors, they died and they bled for, we must finish the work. So it is a privilege and an honor to be part of this. And it's a day of legacy. I need you to be there. We are all we have. Show up in numbers. Show up and show that we matter. I'm expecting to see you there. Thank you.
Thank you, Dwayne. Vanessa?
Emma, I thank God that I met you. That video, it was a godsend. I just want to say to everyone out there, this is not about Vanessa. It's not about Emma, Carlos, or Dwayne. This is about us. None of us have forever. And we need to make sure that we pave the way for our kids and grandchildren and their children coming up, that they don't have to hold their head down anymore in this society. And like I said, it's not something that's going to be achieved overnight, but it's a start. And I hope to see my community standing with us together on April the 11th. Thank you.
That's it. We expect to see you all there. So again, Friday, April the 11th, from 1 to 3, 111 Wellesley Street West. Toronto, and it's at the legislative grounds. And like, honestly, come out. Let us show up. We have to really understand the power that we have and that we possess. The power of our community, the power of our voices, the power of us unifying. It's unrivaled. Why do you think there was a whole town hall meeting after this report went out, and how viral it went by our community? That's what we need to look at and understand, that we are very, very powerful people, and our voice and our lives matter. So it's time to make it count. So yes, power, Black power. And
Ashley.
put that emoji in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
So I thank you all for joining me and having this discussion. Like we said, this is not going to be the first. It will not be the last. We're going to keep going. We're going to keep forging on. We're going to keep having these discussions. I think it's important. People don't feel like discussions are important. I think they are very important, as long as it's the right people in the room. So I appreciate you all joining. I appreciate everybody that's viewed. Thank you so much. Please share this content. Please reach out to any of us. You can find us all on social media. Vanessa, tell everybody where they can find you.
Okay, you can go to blackpeopleunitedforchange.ca, or just look me up on Facebook. I'm Vanessa St. Louis. But the best place to start is on the website. So blackpeopleunitedforchange.ca. My contact details are on the site.
Thank you, Vanessa. Dwayne, where can everybody find you?
So you can find me at a couple places. The tutoring company that we run, geniusnation.ca. You can find us online. You can also find me at ashe.com. Well, Ashe in our Instagram page. .com is not up yet. It's coming soon. But you'll find us on Ashe on Instagram and Facebook. And as well, you can find me, Dwayne Genus, on Facebook as well.
Carlos, where can they find you?
Y'all can find me on Instagram at Soul Rock Music, which is SOLROC_music. You can find me there. I'm also on Facebook. Carlos.morgan.562 on Facebook. So yeah, those are the two places you can find me. You can also find me on YouTube as well. Carlos Morgan.
And everybody knows where to find me. You can find me here, and you can send me emails, and my information is all on my channel. Thank you again for tuning in. If you want more information about the demonstration, you can reach out to either one of us, and we'll be more than happy to share it with you. We hope to see you there. Until next time, please be safe, everyone. Please look out for our youth. Please check in on our youth. If you see something, say something. If you hear something, let us all know. We have to protect our youth.
Yes.
Thank you.
Power to the people. Peace and love.
Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.